All right. First off, just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. This is always a fun week, and we all have so much to be thankful for. I know I do for sure. We had a great open week. It was really nice having an open week this late in the year. I can't remember since my time at Clemson that we had one of these, but really to be able to go back and kind of look at yourself 11 games in, everything that you have on tape. Was really nice for our staff, and felt like our players did a really good job with the extra time kind of studying themselves, and obviously South Carolina, and just really good week of meetings and practice. And then getting ready for South Carolina. This is always a exciting week for players and coaches anytime you're part of a rivalry game. I've been fortunate to be on the sidelines as a coach's kid, player, coach's kid, and then a coach. So I think this is my 26th game going into it. So always something you look forward to around the year for us. Obviously, this is one of our team goals and kind of a season of its own. Probably the biggest thing that stands out watching South Carolina's defense is their front. They've played well all year long. Physical guys, move very well. Number 3's had an outstanding year for them, and is definitely a guy that you got to know where he is at all times. And then, I think their secondary is very active. 24 is a long corner that can create some issues for you if you don't use good release technique. And playing down there is always a great environment, and I know our guys will be excited about the challenge this Saturday at 12 noon. Yeah, as well, my first 5 years were on the sidelines while my dad was coaching down there, and then my next 4 years were as a player here, and then the next 5 years I was on the sideline as a coach's kid, as I was coaching high school ball, and then at Presbyterian. I think our season was over, so I was able to go to that game, and then really for the last 11 years, I guess, as a coach. So I've been on the sidelines of this game in one way, shape, or form for going in my 26th year. So.
We ask you all the time about your time in Tallahassee, but we never really talked to you about your years in Columbia, dude. What were those like for you? And then, obviously coming to Clemson, and do you keep in touch with any of those guys from school?
Number one, that was a long time ago. I'm not going to be able to make it because it's the night before our game, but the school that I went to, Hammond School, is actually having our 20th year class reunion Friday night before the game. They wanted to know if I was going to be able to make it. And unfortunately, with it being playing the next day, I'm not going to be able to make it. But, really that's what I remember the most is just I had a great experience down there. Those were my high school years, going to Hammond, playing football and baseball there. I had a lot of really good friends that I still stay in contact with. But it's funny because it's been so long. I mean, it now literally going on 20 years that since my dad moved up this way. It's been a long time. Reminds me that I'm not quite that young coach that I like to maybe remember myself as. But those are probably the biggest memory. Then the one thing that I talk about a good bit every time we get ready to play South Carolina, but just the year that I had Tiger Paws painted on our driveway when my dad was coach at South Carolina. That was a memorable morning for sure, and just kind of speaks to the rivalry. And it was up until I think last year was the first time that I actually had somebody admit they were the ones that came in the middle of the night from Clemson to paint those Tiger Paws.
When you're self-scouting this offense, particularly over the last month or so, are you having to look hard to find things to?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, number one, we're playing well. I think our efficiency in a lot of areas is much improved from our last open week kind of self-scout that we did. I think the biggest thing is just after 11 games, you start to have tendencies in formations with motions, in certain situations, certain third downs. So it's really kind of studying, what are they looking at when they're studying us on third down? what are they looking at when they look at us in certain formations, 10 personnel, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, and then maybe taking some time to come up with some plays to counter, what they're going off of. I think that was probably more than anything what we tried to do with the self-scout this time.
Jeff, you guys have an uncanny habit of dominating the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes. Is that a particular point of emphasis beyond what you think most teams do with that?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Sweeney definitely talks about that, and we talked to our offense about, that middle eight, which is what you were talking about, last 4 quarters of the second quarter and first 4 quarters of the third quarter. And I mean, when you can score points before you go in at half, I mean, it really, is huge. Just kind of setting the scene for the second half, and just the momentum that you have going into halftime, the way your guys feel, and probably conversely how they feel on the other side when they give up points right there before half, and then really kind of looking at that third quarter very similar to how we look at the beginning of the game. Really get out there and you want to. You want to score points, you want to make a statement, you want to be able to kind of get ahead, if you will. But the best teams that I've been around, the best offenses that I've been around, we've played really well in those middle eight. And I think we've done that this year, especially the second half of the year.
How do you do it, though? I mean, it seems like it's easier said than done.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is being able to make adjustments, both in the first quarter and beginning of the second quarter, and be able to get those communicated to your guys, and for them to be able to go out and act on those. And then obviously you get 20 minutes there at halftime to make some more adjustments, communicate. And I think that's one thing our players do a really good job of is they're able to make adjustments. It's one thing as a coach to be able to see something and all you can do is communicate it to them, but for them to be able to understand what you're saying and be able to, kind of take those words and put into action, that doesn't always happen. That comes from a lot of really good communication during the week, from them putting in some extra time, studying the opponent during the week, and then obviously, being engaged in our meetings. But I think each position coach, I think, does a good job with their position, after we kind of see how people are going to play us early in the first quarter, and then our players take that information and do a good job making the adjustments.
Jeff, with Tavien being here for 3 years and playing this offense and stuff, do you have to change anything up as far as signals or any of that kind of stuff, or is it pretty different?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something that you think about. It's this day and age, it's not something abnormal, I guess. It's probably going to happen more and more often with the way that the transfer rules are now. And also for us, we have to think about that every week because, we're in the very similar offense for a long time here. So there's a lot of tape out there. There's a lot of common opponents. These guys, played us each year the last few years. So it's something that we always take into consideration. And, having an open week, again, allowed us to, be able to make any changes that we'd want to make to how we're getting plays in, those type of things.
But you have a bunch of great wide receivers, not having any of them on the Biletnikoff semifinalist list. What does that say about just the fact that you all spread the ball around as much as you do and the selflessness of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got a lot of talented players on our team, and offensively, I mean, at quarterback, running back, wide out, you go down the list, there's a lot of guys. All I know is our guys have really bought into the attitude that, they're chasing these team trophies, and we've been fortunate to win a lot of those with that being our focus. Sometimes you can look at some of the guys that win those awards, and they're all great awards, but, sometimes they're on teams that are, 8-4, 7-5, and I'm probably just most proud of the way our guys really have not got caught up in worrying about their stats, which a lot of those awards have to be based off of stats. And, I think it says a lot, too, about how well our defense has played. If you want to sit there and compare offensive skill guys' stats, some of those teams that have really good stats by their quarterbacks and wideouts, they've been playing in shootouts all year long. So they've been throwing the ball for 4 quarters. And, the way that our season's gone, we've been able to run the ball very well. And when it's been time to throw the ball, like, last week, we were able to throw the ball. I'm proud of how our guys have performed up to this point. And the big challenge is, what matters most is how you kind of finish the year. And last year we had a really special year because our best players played well at the end of the year. And, that's our expectation this year as well.
It seems that South Carolina struggles a bit more offense or defense. I guess against Georgia they gave them some problems. What does their defense do to kind of create problems?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think their defensive front is very talented, and they've created issues for most everybody that they've played this year. They're more physical, and I think they play harder than maybe they have in the past. I think number 3, like I said, has been a problem for everybody all year long, and he requires a lot of double teams, which allows some of the other guys to get some one-on-one matchups. And I think it's definitely the best defensive front that we've played against South Carolina probably in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's definitely got our guys' attention, and our guys know it'll be a good challenge. And we hope as our season goes, we'll continue to play some other teams that have really good defensive fronts. So this is just kind of what you come to expect this time of year as we're in our championship phase.
Jeff, what are some, as a player and as a coach, your best memories of this game?
Yeah, as a coach, probably the best memory is when Deshaun went out there and played on a torn ACL, really kind of turned the streak that was, and just, his determined spirit that, he wasn't going to lose, and that he was going to help us kind of turn that. That was a pretty impressive performance by him and by our team that year. As a player, my main opportunity to play was being the placeholder for field goals, so being able to be a part of the last-second field goal there, maybe in 2000. Is that correct? That was definitely a memorable experience. But, I mean, all of them have, anytime you're a part of a rivalry, there's a lot of big moments. I think the biggest thing that I've drawn from being a part of that rivalry, this rivalry for going in 26 years now, is that the most excited team, the most passionate team is not always the team that wins, it's the team that executes. I mean, I can remember when we had our spell and we weren't winning this rivalry game like we needed to. We wanted to, but we just didn't execute. We turned the ball over. And so I think that's a good reminder for our guys, because there's no doubt there'll be a lot of juice in this game like there always is. But being able to kind of channel that emotion the right way and really focus on ourselves and our execution is really what's going to allow you to have success.
Even though there's that phrase, throw the records out the window, has it been your experience that the better team usually wins the game in this?
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like some of those games that we lost when we were on the other side of the streak, I felt like we had a better team overall, but did not play well enough that day, and they were the better team that day. And a lot of it, if you go back and look at the turnovers that we had offensively, I think a lot of that can be credited back to those turnovers. So, there was a streak at one time that the road team, won the game for several years in a row. So, I think you can look at a lot of different things. At the end of the day, it shouldn't be different than a lot of the games that you play, and that, the team that performs the best on that day is going to win. And, I think the rivalry part of it and the added juice and emotion and all that stuff, is fun, but can become a distraction sometimes if you let it. And I think that's the reminder for our guys, is to really channel that the right way. And the last few years we have.
Jeff, that 2000 game, that's the one where Ron pushed on. For better or worse, the narrative this year has been that you guys are great and the rest of the SEC has some issues. Is this the kind of year, the time of year when you could look at maybe some of these ACC, SEC games and say, it'd be nice if we can get a couple, our league can get a couple?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that storyline for me, I know is just kind of, I'm over with that. I know there's, before we won the championship in 2016, that was a heavy storyline for several years. And then I think, what we've been able to do 2 of the last 3 years is kind of put that to bed. And we haven't really made it our one of the goals of our year or whatever to prove the ACC's worth. I think every year you can point out teams, and all I know is every week that we come out and prepare as coaches, I mean, there's no weeks that we go in and say, well, we're guaranteeing a win. We can go home early tonight. I mean, we're putting in a lot of work. These players are putting in a lot of work. And I think really maybe our success that we've had in our league speaks more, in my opinion, to our guys' consistency and preparation than it does maybe to the opponents and who we're playing. But there's no doubt, whenever they have a chance to have crossover and get to play teams from other leagues, it's probably a little bit easier to the to be able to kind of see some differences each year. But to be honest, that's not something that we spend a lot of time worried about anymore. I mean, I think we've proven that if we just focus on ourselves and on, having success each week and the things that are required to have success each week, that we're going to have an opportunity to prove, kind of our worth on the field versus, whoever we get matched up with as it goes down the road. And I think our guys have really bought into that mindset and, kind of moved past the whole conference comparison.
As you're putting together a game plan, is Javon Kinlaw just kind of one of those guys that pops as far as we got to figure out how to get help on that guy? That's a guy that we don't want to let beat us as far as the individual.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime as a coach, as you're watching video, you want to see if there's, a really talented player that you need to spend a little extra time accounting for, whether it's a defensive lineman, sometimes it's a corner, sometimes it's a linebacker, something like that, and just go through all of your, if it's a defensive lineman like it is with Kinlaw, go through all of your protections and make sure, and all your run game schemes, and make sure that you're putting your guys in the best opportunity to be successful. And I think the biggest thing, I mean, we've playing the teams that we've played the last few years with veteran offensive line, we've played some talented guys. So our guys, have kind of been through this before. So it's really for them as much as it is for the coaches, for those guys to go and watch on video and really study, a really good player and see how well he uses his hands, see some of his tendencies, and understand that, they need to always know where he is and get 2 hands on him and not just give him a shoulder, and understand on third down as a pass rusher some of the moves and different things that he has. But, yeah, absolutely, he is a guy that we've spent some time this week really studying, and I think some teams that have had some success against them have found a way, to be able to double team him at times. You can't play the entire game that way, but there's certain times where maybe you can schematically put your guys in a good position to be able to block him. But he's definitely a problem, and much improved from where he was a year ago watching last year's video to what he's done on video this year.
Jeff, what area do you think Trevor's improved on the most in season this year?
I mean, the easy answer is just making, eliminating those 2 or 3 bad decisions that he made earlier in the year. But I think probably the thing I'm most proud about has just been his consistency in his preparation, consistency in his mindset. I mean, obviously, being as talented as he is and playing on a team like Clemson at the position that he's played, there's going to be a lot of critique and a lot of talk out there every single week. But to be able to find a guy his age that, really does not allow any of that talk, or doesn't allow maybe his performances, his positives, his negatives, does not allow that to affect the next week, his preparation. I think just the consistency that he's played with all year long has probably been the most impressive. I think he's done a really good job using his legs and knowing when to extend plays and when to take off and run. But I think he's done an excellent job, just the way that he's graded out for us these last 4 or 5 weeks, and making the right decisions, and also done a really good job checking the ball down to the back and understanding every throw doesn't have to be a deep ball down the field, which obviously he makes plenty of those, but being able to find the back and really manage the game with good decision making, that and just the consistency of his preparation and his mindset all year has probably been the biggest takeaways.
What does Feaster mean to you? I mean, you get a chance to see him now on Saturday, and he spent a lot of time with you in this program.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to recruit Tavien for really 4 years, since his 9th grade. Biggest thing I think about is he did everything that we asked him to do while he was here. I mean, he was a joy to coach, went to work every single day, was very consistent as a player, did everything we asked him to do off the field with his academics and everything that you want in a player. So those are kind of my memories and thoughts of him during his time here. Obviously just been able to see flashes, but obviously he's done a good job for them this year, and it'll be a little different seeing him over there on the other side, but it kind of is what it is, and luckily we'll be all focused about our offense and trying to go play the best game we can play, and look forward to being able to see him after the game, tell him I'm proud of him.